So we're going to be checking out Knife Shift's Let's Build a Warhammer Tank, the Armor Modeler way. I'm assuming he means toy-sized, but considering the first screen here is him outside, if this is being done IRL, I am going to have so many questions. And all of them are, how many times did the neighbors call the police?
Friends, today we are at a very unusual spot in a quarry. Now, you might be asking, what does a quarry do with Warhammer, right? But the thing is,
it would be enough place for one single apocalypse game. Not bad.
When I was looking up inspiration for yellow and black beaten up tanks on the internet, the best thing I found were bulldozers, and most of them were photographed in quarries. So there's that. But you know what? Let's move from this place of huge inspiration and get to the studio.
Mike Envy. Scale models by Martin Kovac.
I chose a Sykara.
Oh, I've seen this one. I don't own it, but I've seen it one. It looks cool.
And battle tank because as a historical armor modeler, its design seemed the most...
Wait, seriously? I'm sorry, I didn't realize that had precedent. I thought it was just big guns on sides and everywhere. Yeah. I didn't realize that was a thing that actually happened. The more you know.
Reasonable and plausible to me.
Okay.
I was pleasantly surprised by the quality of the kit. There's no flaw.
Oh, I hate these so much. I've built tanks with treads. The reason I hate them is because they're almost as bad as the tanks with the hover mechanics they added in. Because they're like every single piece is fiddly and they all look the same.
Flash, no ejector pin marks, and everything is nice and crisp. But I won't bore you with that. Let's instead get building and modifying. I'm pretty much gonna follow the instructions and build the model in sub-assemblies.
Oh, he has really sharp clippers. I have a pair that are not, and I have to do a lot of cleaning up afterwards. Oh, I'm
starting with the sponsons and tracks. Here I prepared the road wheels by removing the positioning blocks.
Why?
They allow you to precisely glue the tracks in place, but I'm gonna keep them removable, and this will make it easier. After gluing...
Remove? What? Okay, this is probably something a modeler would understand. I don't usually do this level of bashing on, or kit bashing, so
all the major parts in place, I proceeded to remove almost all of the surface detail. There are quite a few rivets on the surface, but most of them are added just for the visual effect and extra detail.
Yeah, one of the easiest things you could do is when dry brushing, it adds shadow and highlights the top so it goes instant shine effect. It's a cool little technique that these kind of details do highlight.
Basically, just so we can have something to paint. But their placement makes very little sense. I also tried to break the thick side armor into smaller plates.
Why?
Because I wanted to make it look like...
Oh, is that a saw? Oh, that saw is actually moving. I thought he was just scraping, but no.
The real tank was actually assembled from individual pieces. To be honest...
No, it is just a saw. Okay, I thought it was like maybe one of those auto saws that went back and forth on its own, just moving fast, but it's just the angle. I can't see it. Okay.
I gave up on that effort after this, but at least I scribed some of the corners to make the individual parts visually separated.
Oh.
Moving on to another detail that's here just for the sake of being there without any logic behind it, these panels had to go. I kept a couple of them in place, but you will see what I did them in a moment.
I don't even know what that is. Special cement. Oh, is that a liquid cement he's adding in to cover up? Oh, he's covering it up. He'll probably sand it down so it's even.
Everything else was flooded with super glue and CA filler and brutally sanded down. Finally, the last destructive touch was gently scraping some of the sharp edges, which not only removes the fuss from sanding, but also gives the whole thing a slightly bulkier, less refined look.
Really? So... hard edges make things look bulkier and more refined because it's crisp, and things that are being beaten don't usually look crisp. That would do it.
Now I could perform one of my favorite building techniques, adding some rough steel texture with Tamiya modeling putty diluted with extra thin cement. Texturing is very easy and it improves the look of the model significantly.
Really?
Even your painting experience will be slightly different. But the goal isn't to texture every surface of the model, just those super thick plates that would be rolled from heavy steel slabs.
See, this is the part I don't get. Why would that look like steel? It looks more like paper mache to me. It's probably the next step he's doing. That would do it. Also, according to Croc, Real One was shooting 50 caliber for aiming the rockets. So they did tracer rounds of 50 calibers to aim rockets. God damn.
A very important step is to gently polish the surface, otherwise it would have an unpleasant, grainy quality. Another cool detail is the flame cut marks.
What?
These occur on the cross-section of each plate as a result of the manufacturing process.
Oh.
Sure, it's an effect.
See, I've actually seen this before when I saw another recommended video relating to Starship design, and they put on cross lines down the side of it. I thought on mine, it looked more like a mark of stone cutting, so it looked like a stone ship in space. But I guess that's actually a technique you see to emulate steel. Huh.
Most often seen on World War II vehicles when the cutting methods weren't as precise and there just wasn't much time to machine those surfaces, but it looks totally awesome and makes the model look even heavier. Now I could make my own bolts from 0.2mm plastic sheets and a punch and die set from RP tools. I tried to place them more logically, and yes, even though the kit had rivets, bolts made more sense to me. I tried putting them in places where they would hold armor plates together and where...
Is that just... Oh, it's probably water to attach it, or like a mix of watered down super glue, isn't it? And that's why he's using the tweezers to hold it in place.
Such as parts of the running gear would be bolted in place and so on.
So they dry in location.
It's funny how this tank has literally no suspension. Keeping up with the same spirit, I switched my attention to the tracks. These are actually very nice. They just need this ugly seam line to be eliminated. It can take a while, but it's totally worth the effort. Now,
I've usually ignored them just because a lot of the detail just gets covered over by paint, as long as you don't go too thin, which is usually the better option. So a lot of people do that unless they go way too thick, and then it has its own issues.
I dry assemble the track according to the instructions. This is vital because there's a specific number of individual links and segments around each wheel, and then glue them all together, laying flat on my workbench.
Is this the entire section or the parts that need to bend as well? And as someone who did fuck this part up, I had to break part of the wheel to get it off and had to re-glue it. Looked fine by the end, but... Oh, this is so annoying because they all look the same too.
After about, let's say, 5 minutes, the track holds together, but it's flexible enough to be wrapped around the running gear. This way, I'll get a perfectly fitting track that can be removed at any point for easier painting.
I'm actually surprised. I didn't think it would actually hold together. Or it wouldn't bend, but no, apparently it still bends, even with the gluing process.
And now for the final ace in my sleeve. Adding weld beads from Tamiya epoxy putty. These have to be rolled into
I thought this was toxic to skin contact.
Delicate noodles, which is quite easy if you have something smooth like plastic sheets and some tap water. Then we can start placing them on the model. Now, the main difference between bolts and welds is that what's welded in place stays in that place forever.
Yep, where a bolt, if you take it out, is disconnected. And that's why it looks like a weld, because it would be the extra metal boiling, or not boiling, like literally melting together.
And what's bolted can be removed. That's why I try to focus the bolts on those parts that might get removed during maintenance or assembly, and welds in places that might have been assembled from multiple
texturing
pieces,
it to look like they've done it in layers
permanently. As usual, I employed my custom-made tools for texturing. A piece of soda...
He made his own texture tools? God damn.
Can bent into a C shape for a single bevel weld beads, and a flattened piece of sprue for multiple pass welds. But 95% of the welds on this tank are the cleaner.
I'm just impressed that he can do so many of these without missing one to such a horrible extent. It's just a level of precision because it's repeatable. That sometimes when you try to do repeated actions over and 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 over, you see where I'm going with this. You're going to start just blurring a bit, but that's just making sure to get the right thing. Like, they're not all perfect, but they're close enough where it looks intentional, that takes a level of precision I don't have, or patience.
Single bevel welds, because they just look prettier to me. Okay,
Yeah.
that should be about it for the sponsons, and it's also a general overview of what I did on this model. But note that the gun stations are still untouched. That's because the hull is assembled from multiple pieces, and some of them are connected. So it's easier to texture them as a single unit. Others, like the driver's compartment, are easier to treat separately.
And
here's
breaking
another
them,
way to make welds in places where scribing a groove is not so easy. Just some shallow incisions with a blade right on the edge, and then a lick of Mr. Cement S to soften that texture.
Liquid cement to soften? Or is it like a plastic cement where it actually softens it physically? Or does liquid cement just interact with it in a weird way I haven't known?
I love how this kit falls together. It strongly reminds me of Tamiya models.
Also, according to Croc, he called his entire audience amateurs without saying it. To be fair, if he was calling me an amateur, he would be greatly overestimating my competency at this point.
Everything fits perfectly, and there are no gaps that would have to be filled. Just some sanding on the glued joints and...
I've built models from Games Workshop. They have that issue. Like, I've built Gundam models and they were a dream to work together. I've never done a Games Workshop model where I felt like it was perfectly fitting. Like, they look great, but sometimes, especially with... No, but this is part of the new Horus Heresy line. They might have actually got their act together for once. That might do it.
And you're pretty much golden. So now I could repeat the same steps on the rest of the hull. Adding texture on the thick steel plates with diluted putty, making new bolts for the add-on armor and other pieces, and more weld beads. Here I kinda gave up on the authenticity of the vehicle because first, it's impossible, and second, why not embrace it? So I just tried to make it look cool and give it some interesting textures. And also do some extreme things that otherwise wouldn't be possible on historical or modern vehicles. I also wanted to keep this build completely out of the box, but the exhausts are the best candidates for aftermarket replacements. I briefly considered 3D printing my own with better details, but then again...
Oh, he made them bigger. Oh, bigger holes on them.
I wanted to keep it out of the box. The turret offered even more fun in the texturing department. Judging by its shape, it would clearly be a metal casting, and that means we can play around with cast metal textures, which are...
See, this is the thing. I don't know anything about metal casting. The few models I have of that are tiny and high detail, so if there's specific things that just are more frequent with it, I'm completely unaware of it. So just even this as a technique is brand new to me. Also, Martin, you'd say you're about average. This guy is just insane. Really, what kind of kits do you build? Most of your L's fit together really easily. Custodes. That came from Forge World. I had very few of them, but I thought it was a worthwhile splurge because it's Custodes. You buy one and you're more or less set forever. If you know about the process, you realize Forge World dying was not a loss.
Much more brutal than rolled steel. They can vary depending on the manufacturing process, but because there are no real-life references for this tank, I employed a couple of fun techniques and ended up with a pretty rough surface that's pretty similar to turrets on Soviet tanks from World War II.
Because it looks like it was beat to shit and then just reattached back again.
Coupled with some additional weld detail and flame cut marks, it's a small model on its own. I also added the sponson-mounted secondary guns, and here I simply chose what I found attractive.
Yep. Also, I'm just going to pull up Croc's comment, or sorry, not Croc's, Duck's comment, because I think it's perfectly reflective here. This is being done as a hobby. This is not him working at competition level. This level of detail is his relaxing, no effort added because I can. Not the hyper attentive to detail competition level of kit bashing. That is accurate. Oh dear God. Yeah, you're right about that. Oh jeez.
I have no knowledge about the universe, so if I broke some rules here, I did it unknowingly.
Yeah.
So anyway, that concludes the construction, and the tank is pretty hefty. I hope that the texturing technique made
The crazy part is it looks like it's already finished because just the small variation of color. Even though technically nothing is painted so far. It looks like you could play it on the board. And people might not even realize technically it's unpainted. Technically. Because depending on how you value it, that might count.
it even more like heavy metal. And with that wish, let's head to the painting workbench.
Oh, the painting comes next. Oh. Also, according to Martin, he had to study manufacturing techniques for a uni class. Ooh, my apologies, man. Pretty interesting, actually. Oh, might look up someday.
After breaking it up into sub-assemblies,
it wasn't
washing
glued
them
together.
all in soapy water, spraying...
Okay, this is just a me question. Why would you wash it? Oh, that was probably super glue mix holding those pieces on so they wouldn't come off in water. Okay, that makes more sense.
With a lot of isopropyl alcohol and attaching everything to an improvised handle, I can start painting. I went with a dark brown primer because I'm going to employ an approach that's almost the same as my previous model.
A brown primer? Haven't used that color before. I've done brighter colors to go in reverse to make things look like there's an internal glow, and I've done dark colors for just general zenithal, but never a brown.
Rusty locomotive. And for that, I need a solid rusty undercoat, and Mr. Mahogany Primer is just the best for that.
Oh?
The primer alone wouldn't be sufficient enough, though, so I went ahead and gave...
Because you're going to be adding other colors on, so anywhere where the primer shows through looks like it's a dirty, rusty, old, run-down brown. Okay, that makes more sense.
The surface more variation using these new AK Real Color lacquer paints. I like how they have a dropper bottle so you can precisely nail the paint and thinner ratio.
See that part right there where the little gun inside the tank moved around would drive me so crazy. Just because if it's moving around every time I paint it, it's going to be putting paint at inaccurate angles is what I'm thinking. But apparently he can deal with that.
Combined with Mr. Leveling Thinner, they spray like a dream. I also added a few spots of less corroded metal with a gray Tamiya paint, diluted with the same thinner. Now that's a pretty decent rusty base coat for some heavy hairspray chipping.
Because the base is brown, but the parts that have the most brilliant rust are more orange or brown. Okay. Huh. And I'm being told it's to remove oil from the hand. Okay. Thanks, chat.
And that's gonna be a pretty intense job because the model isn't the smallest. And I'm going to add a lot of chips. As such,
that's probably
a good layer of VMS chipping medium is required. With the top layer, I decided to play it safe and use Tamiya.
You paint over the chipping medium? Oh. I mean, to be fair, I never actually knew how to do that, so.
Acrylics because I'm already familiar with their chipping characteristics. I started with a nice, thin coat of pure white, which will provide more opacity for the actual color of the tank. It's just a small trick. A white base coat needs fewer layers to cover it up.
And that's why the chipping will come through as the rust underneath it. Okay, I see.
And a dark rusty coat. As for the actual color of the tank, I went with the Imperial Fist Yellow because it's very unusual.
Honestly, I thought that was going to be more of a greenish brown, but apparently it's supposed to be yellow.
To what I usually paint. But just my luck, I ran out of flat yellow on my previous model and forgot to buy a new bottle. It was my intention to use a very desaturated yellow anyway, so I guess it wasn't such a big deal. Now, the chipping involves moistening the surface with tap water, which activates the fluid, and then carefully scraping it with an old airbrush needle and some stiff brushes. This whole concept comes from my initial thoughts about this project. Someone told me that the Imperial Fist color scheme isn't the easiest to paint and they're curious to see my approach. And I thought, hey, just look for real-life references, you know?
I've seen chipping medium be used in a lot of occasions, but I think this is by far just details right here around the edges. It looks so perfect. You can see this and all you think is, if you touch this, you're going to get tinnitus. It perfectly captures the wear points where everything would just take the paint away. I never really got chipping medium before because it's like, why wouldn't you just paint in, like, just do some scratch marks or just not do it at all? Or to highlight them a separate color. But no, it's because this makes it look like it's heavy, like it's metallic, and the white coloring underneath it looks like it's a thick paint applied. So when it pulls away, it looks like there's weight to the paint on top of the metal underneath it. Rather than the metal is this color, it's the color applied to it. Altogether, the two different techniques, both the chipping and the putty mix, the Tamiya paste mix in there is pretty, well, amazing. And Taryn, your thing is, so Forge World is a heretical world because it failed to make lore accurate production quality and thus was exterminated for its, yeah. Also because they just had a lot of issues. They had some good products, and the Custodes range was one of them, but they also had a lot of issues.
And the first thing that popped to my mind was Caterpillar bulldozers. They are yellow and black, and the internet is full of photos of old, dirty, and rusty bulldozers. So my whole concept was to pretty much paint this tank like a dozer. That includes extensive chipping on the lower parts where it would smash into rocks and other obstacles, as well.
It's crazy how you could actually see the glue holding down the rivets he added. They were invisible points, but now that they're painted over, they have so much more depth around them, looking like they're actually welded or like painted in, and you can see where the paint would have pooled up around the edges of it. Oh, I love the effect. I wasn't sure when he was doing it how it would turn out, but now seeing the extra layers of texture, it looks really good. I never even thought to do some of these techniques, and they're not like they're hard. I just never even consider them. Mostly because scratching plastic is just, that's a no-go as far as I'm concerned, but I see why it works. And Duck, you mentioned, and his main projects are normally done in 4 videos and takes months to finish. What is the craziest thing this guy has done? Also, the good news, the Custodes got an update in Horus Heresy in plastic. I saw the price tag. Yeah, they are pretty models though, like really pretty. Also, it's a rivet. It's a bolt, not a rivet. Yep. Wouldn't a bolt, though, have some way to unscrew it?
Overall weathering.
Doesn't matter.
I even planned a scenic base for it, but later decided to present this as a standalone model.
Oh.
Next up, I had to seal the areas where another layer of paint will go in VMS.
So that it doesn't activate and chip further than he wants, yeah. Oh, and he did the most chipping on the areas that would have the most wear. The engine at the back, the top where things would be touched, where they pulled back more than the actual thing. And then everything in the front where every bit of it would be tearing away the paint.
Flat varnish is the best thing for that. Then I gave it another layer of chipping fluid and sprayed the dark areas with flat black, lightened up with a dusty color for a slightly warmer hue. In some cases, we don't even have to use masking tape because the chipping fluid will act as a mask. The overspray is very easy to remove for a nice, sharp-looking finish. On the front, I had to make a distinction between areas that are right in the open to be smashed into objects and those that are protected by the bulky armor. The amount of chipping will obviously have to vary here, but don't worry, we'll make it more interesting with other techniques. With that out of the way, I could quickly apply the markings. Each area received a coat of Tamiya gloss varnish for good measure, and I was a bit worried about the decal quality, but very quickly I noticed that this will be one of those cases where the decals are absolutely fantastic.
I cannot stand decals, mostly because every time I've tried, I've torn them. Maybe I'm just getting flimsy ones, and also I'm not coordinated, so that might have an effect. Also, according to Duck, the Soviet ball tank, but all models are insane, so they're all crazy. Oh, God.
And yeah, after just a little amount of decal setting solution, the carrier film completely disappears and the print sits nicely into the rough steel.
Oh, and it does look like everything was peeled away here. And you're looking like the undercoat layer, like almost a primer.
Texture. Absolutely terrific. All I had to do then was to spray these sections with flat varnish again to properly integrate them into the surface. But this next step is closely tied to the decals because I started the post-shading process.
And that's why the yellow is being held up here. So it looks like it's a black tank with the yellow armor bolted on. Or bolted on. Huh. It makes more sense when you see the outside of it from here, a little further back.
By spraying a very thin coat of white ink on top of them. Moving on to the whole model, I used yellow ink to add more vibrancy to the finish. I focused it around corners, but was pretty generous with the application. Basically, I tried to sort of fix that faded greenish yellow and give it more punch.
Okay, so I'm not the only one seeing the green tint here. Okay, I thought maybe just my eyes were off, but no, that's intentional.
What's awesome about inks is their vibrancy, but at the same time, translucency. I can easily spray it over those chipped areas without toning the worn effect down too much. And because they're diluted with tap water, I can keep building up the effect without reactivating the dry layers, which is something that can happen with
Wait, what? If they're oil-based inks... Oh, no, it's probably acrylic ink. No, inks are usually oil-based, aren't they?
lacquer thinners. This is probably my favorite step in the post-shading process because it breathes so much life into the model.
And showing that they catch more wear here because they're exposed, so they have a little less of the yellow. Okay.
The application is super fun, but the biggest strength of this particular effect is the flexibility. You can make it into several things. An outline of every detail, fake shadow, accumulations of dirt, stains and streaks of oil.
See, I'm a much less accomplished painter on my end. I would very much just go wash it, and then before it dries, quickly get a towel and dab at the top of it to pull away most of it. It's a very simple technique, and if you press too hard, it could fuck things up because it might reactivate paint. But generally, for a quick one and done, that's good. This is a level of taking that entire idea and going well beyond anything I've thought to do. It is kind of fun to see, though.
It's up to you.
Oh, dude.
It makes the model look like a finished piece, albeit a little soft around the details, but still, it's
and showing the
a great effect.
Water effects,
and lastly, following the same approach as on my last...
I've actually seen, I think it's Loki from Zorpazorb do this effect a lot on stone, showing where the various grime would run over time because it gets pulled up and then pushed out.
Model, I grabbed my mixture of very diluted whole red and flat yellow and sprayed some of the largest chips with it. This is a quick and efficient...
Effectively highlighting the rust is showing that it's progressing, not just only there. Okay.
...way of building up the heavy rust accumulation.
Also, I'm being told ink can be water-based? Huh. More you know.
And we can also introduce even more contrast between different parts of the model. That's why I think it's reasonable to perform this task in the initial airbrushing stages, as we'll still have all the other techniques to refine it if necessary. So that's the airbrush base.
That's a thing of beauty, man. Like, I'd like just flat colors on models because I just like them. But I love this too. It has so much extra detail, and I wasn't sure about it, but yeah, now that you can see everything all in, you see where there's the heavy bolted on armor, and then the underside, which is looking more solid black with color that has been almost beaten into it.
With all the signs of heavy wear, extensive use, and old age. This is something that would be quite over the top in historical modeling, but it seems that in Warhammer, it might still be very subtle in some cases, as I heard that some tanks can be even over 100 years old.
Yeah, those are called the new ones.
And now for the easiest, most satisfying, most transformative, and undoubtedly the best in terms of effort to result ratio technique, Enamel Pin Wash. For this model, I chose two different shades. No. Ooh, almost knocked over the cup.
I've never used enamel washes. I never thought of it because it looks like it's... the way it's growing and like just being absorbed by the paint itself. I've never seen this effect. Oh. It's so fascinating, but it looks like it would be so easy to screw up. One drop out of place and it looks completely out of place. You have to start over.
Wash for German dark yellow, which is lighter and ideal for most of the surface details.
Showing the rivets are wearing
for
first.
All those deep panel lines, gaps between different parts, running gear components, and the black.
And it's such a runny ink that doesn't go too far, though. It just is drawn to the small sections.
Black parts of the paint job. Is one of the techniques that looks awfully messy at
But he can remove the extra pieces. Okay, I thought he was just going to leave them.
first.
Should have thought otherwise.
But once we blend the paint, it completely changes the result. The effect can look too strong and weird on a model painted in a plain color, but it works extremely well with a post-shaded surface.
Because it's an ink. I'm not sure if enamels will work the same way, but apparently it does. You can remove the excess. Also, according to Tutor, you need to be careful with those. They can... Oh, they're poison. Ah. Yeah, that would do it.
It's basically a small system that I started using over the past years.
It
Some
looks
post-shading,
really cool, though.
a model with a matte texture, and pin washes. These three factors together can lead to pretty exciting results, because in addition...
And even then, when he moves away the excess, the paint's still there, and there's like a little bit of a patina left behind. But it's very faint and only just emphasizes where the shadows, where the, well, extra BS is.
To what I already said, washes blend differently on glossy, satin, and matte finishes. A surface that has no shine absorbs some of the paint, and once you start blending, it creates these subtle stains around details.
I've been using semi-gloss, so apparently I need to work on that and just try something different there. Less shine, but more actual blending on ink.
We can drag them outward to add even more dirt in specific places as well, and that's what makes this technique so flexible. Just check out how much has the model changed with just a pin wash.
If I saw this on the table right now, I'd be like, yeah, that looks fine. And I think it's beautiful. It looks like someone crushed a tank, and it looks like it's intentionally destroyed and hollow out. So it's like it was not able to be used, so people took the useful bits. But he's going to do more, so this is going to look so cool.
I often want to call the model finished after this step, but there's still a lot of work ahead of us. So let's put the metal palette and enamels aside and crack open the wet palette. I mean, this will just involve painting all the small details, so I'm not gonna spend that much time here because I'm sure everyone has their own favorite color palette for specific things.
Yeah.
For example, painting fake glass is something Warhammer painters have perfected, and I'm just trying to learn what they already know. But it's always satisfying to observe the process. When it comes to...
I don't get fake glass. I've tried the technique. I failed horribly. I've seen some people do some crazy stuff with mixing an enamel and a varnish, but with actual inks and slurring them around and just doing some bullshit like that. And yeah.
The weld beads, there are two things we can do with them that I know
Showing
of.
that they're different colors.
First is a pin wash, which we already did, and second is to add some chipping on top of them as well. Welds have a very shiny quality to them thanks to the alloys used in the process, and they take much longer to rust compared to steel plates.
Really?
As such, using shiny silver paint to add some chips on top of them is a...
Also, according to Martin, he just uses the gloss effect paints. Wait, there's effect paints for sheerly just gloss. I did not know about that, but also I haven't been looking at GW paints in quite a bit of time, so that might be the case.
Great way to add authenticity, but also make these details stand out. I also used a darker steel color for the road wheels, although the effect is gonna be completely invisible. Painting these shell casings in a shiny brass finish is not just satisfying, but it creates another shiny detail that's gonna...
This is just me. I know some people absolutely go gaga for non-metallic metals, and honestly, when done well, it looks amazing. But there's something satisfying about true metallics. When you get a good true metallic that just perfectly covers, where it immediately shines, where nothing else around it is, I just love using them still.
Stand out nicely on the beaten up rusty tank. Okay, so let's now put the acrylics aside and instead prepare a dry palette for oil paints. It's good to let the excess oil from...
I mean, I've done a lot of dry brushing with, you know, acrylics. I've never thought to do dry brushing with oil paints, though. I guess that would work out a lot better because a tiny bit of oil goes a long way. Also, Martin, non-metallic metal is overrated. I like it very simple paint jobs. I've seen it used well, but you have to use it well. And if someone like me tries it, it would not be used well. I think it's one of those high skill ceilings, very high skill floor techniques that if you do it well, it looks good. But anyone else who's trying it and not doing well, you notice a lot faster, which is one of the reasons I haven't tried much.
Them seep into
I'm
a
still learning
piece
how to
of
get other
cardboard,
techniques.
as then they'll dry to a matte finish, and also they'll dry faster.
Semi-translucent.
I'm only going to use a couple of rusty tones to enhance the worn finish of the tank. These are absolutely fantastic for the exhausts, where they work together with the acrylic grayish white brown base coat that I applied previously.
Just a little bit extra.
Once they dry, some of the acrylics will be visible, resulting in a nice heat-affected rusty metal. But their greatest strength is the ease of control and subsequent blending, making them ideal for more subtle hints of rust around the smaller chips. This is where the
because it's so translucent, it barely looks like there's anything there, but it is still moving.
Brush might become too difficult to handle, resulting in an overpowering effect that would make the tank look like a rusty Hulk.
Yeah.
It's also worth mentioning,
to be fair though, if the tank looked like a rusty Hulk, it would still look cool.
That rust zones work really well with yellow, but also they can become quite overpowering. I'd be definitely more careful on an operational historical tank, but on a civilian bulldozer or a made-up war machine, I think it's completely up to each of our individual tastes.
Yeah.
I also tried painting the secondary guns in a more WARHAMMER style, according to the box art.
Just adding that little drop of color there. But after he already did some basic shading on it. Oh god, it's so cool looking.
Because I thought they contrast nicely with the weathered tank. But they also needed a bit of weathering so
and
they
then he
wouldn't
blurs
look
it in too.
completely out of place. At this stage, we can start putting some of the assemblies together. For example, the turret won't receive much weathering after this point, and having the main guns in place gives us a better idea of
and there's just that like a one shiny bit of silver right there.
The overall look of the model.
It actually stands out more because of it.
Looks pretty heavy metal to me, so I think we can move on to the earth effects. When I'm creating mud or thick accumulations of dirt, I like to start with volumes and textures. Textured acrylic mud from AK is the ideal medium for the job.
I've heard other people use this one, but I haven't used it myself.
Doesn't shrink when it dries, and...
Wait, it doesn't shrink? Oh, okay, that's impressive. I've seen a lot of other textures that's like, it looks good when you put it down. It's like, okay, we got the clump of mud here, and it's like, oh, the prints, and then 5 seconds later, you turn around, and it's like matte. It just becomes ink because all the volume evaporates away. There's something that doesn't do that would be very impressive, though.
Actually has a very nice, realistic texture. It's also fairly easy to control because of its consistency, and if needed, it can be blended with tap water. But here we have to work quickly because it starts drying almost immediately. The tracks would carry a lot of loose soil and rock.
Oh, he's actually just getting the dirt on there.
Onto these exposed areas.
Literal dirt too.
I enhance them with some real earth from my garden.
I hope he cooked that. One of the things I've heard of, it's fine to grab just random things from outside, but because bullshit can live in it, sometimes literally depending on where you're at, you definitely want to bake them at a high heat to make it sterilized.
Sometimes you just can't beat natural products, especially when you're aiming for this loose texture. The best
and then you solve it. Oh, I've seen people use spray bottles, but I guess that would make sense not to do here because it might damage it at that point.
The best way to hold it all in place is by using VMS ballast freeze, which is acrylic, doesn't attack the paint, and dries rock hard.
The one I've seen is from Zorpazorp, where they basically have a spray bottle of diluted water and super glue. I have no idea how that thing doesn't clog up.
You just have to remove the excess because it would leave visible blobs on the surface. If you'd like to try some of these VMS products as well, you can get them directly from VMS if you're in Europe, or Michigan Toy Soldier if you're in the US. And if you use my sale coupons,
just
you
covered
get a
in
nice
the excess
discount.
buildup
Links
of rock
are
and
down
dirt
below.
and stone.
Next up is pre-dusting with an airbrush. This way we can shift the tone of the earth and also prepare a sturdy, opaque base coat for the enamel effects. It can also visually soften the transition between the muddy and clean areas. It's important to choose the right dust tone, and in this case, I went for a grayish one, which would
I don't quite get the effect yet, but I think I'll see it when he's finished. Also, according to Martin, it's not super glue, but white glue. Oh, okay.
contrast nicely with the yellow tank. The rest is all about enamel paints,
Whoa.
and it always feels discouraging at first because everything just looks so messy and
It does, but at the same time, it's definitely an enamel paint technique, then not technique, just like the spread of it. It just it's almost like you're looking at static clean of paint where it just finds every little crack and jumps to it without any rhyme or reason is what it looks like on my end. But we saw as he previously worked it down to exactly what he wanted, so it'll probably work out.
weird. My basic approach is to start with the lightest tone of dust and dry mud, and then add darker tones later for variation. It's also advisable to leave the first layer dry overnight so you don't reactivate it with enamel thinner as you're blending the subsequent layer.
I've actually done that before. Sometimes the reactivation of an enamel has a cool effect. I think I put up a picture of a Pikachu I painted once that turned into a horror chew. But it still is not something I can do intentionally, but I would love to find out how. Also, he added the texture to the undercoat. That's why it doesn't pool. Oh.
Of course, there are different ways and mediums to achieve this look, but I find enamels to be the most convenient for my needs. Darker tones can be used to add more variation to the dust, or create areas of damp mud. It all depends on the intensity and application. This is my favorite step in the process because the final result is starting to become more evident.
It is looking very white, though. I wonder what steps he's going to take on top of that.
All these enamel effects are from AK. Same goes for the oil paints I used for the rust, as well as the acrylics I used for detail painting, or the lacquer paints used for the rusty base coat. You can get them all at a better price if you follow.
I wonder how dry it is by this one, because it looks like it's still incredibly wet, so the streaking looks like it would be very risky. If you just push a little too far, you'd tear it right off. Or at least that would be my concern. If it was dried overnight and then had a little paint on it. No, it probably had dry because he mentioned that already.
My affiliate link in the video description, as well as a discount if you use the coupon, which you'll find there as well.
It is starting to look way more intentional.
There are also dedicated products for wet mud or stains of oil.
And then, of course, just the tiny little drop from the tip of the brush, and the ink just flows. It's definitely the enamel, but it hyper highlights everything. Oh, man.
Oil, but I like to keep things simple and use a dark wash. The same one I used previously.
Yeah.
These effects are the cherry on top, and it's very satisfying to apply them on a completely weathered tank.
Yeah.
It's that stage where it should be clear if the model is gonna look good, or you'll need to go back a few steps and do some touch-ups here and there.
The more I see this effect right here, where you see the runoff of accumulated water, I'm starting to absolutely love this effect. I cannot pull it off of myself just because it feels so messy that I reject doing it physically, but I love the look of it.
The tracks were painted in the same manner. The techniques are the same.
Oh yeah, you see all of the dirt on each one.
Easier because they're gonna be quite messy just everywhere compared to the tank.
And that would be the top-facing ones with how it was oriented too. So this is something that people would see, not just hidden underneath.
Where we had to be more careful. The most important thing here is to make the weathering on the tracks look identical to those areas of the model that are directly affected by them.
Oh.
So if the tracks are covered in dark, wet mud, the piles of earth at the front of the tank should have the same color. Finally, all that's left to do are some finishing touches. One of them involves a pencil and is one of the most powerful methods because it gives the heavily worn areas a
It looks like they were worn to the point where the rust was chipped away and then pulled away and worn away till you got the unrusted clean segments that are even almost polished from just usage. I think I saw this a few other times with the, like, just not the lead, but just a regular pencil doing it. Graphite? I actually don't know what it's called.
realistic heavy metal shine. If you make a mistake, it's easy to fix with enamel thinner, which dissolves the graphite.
Not an eraser?
It's also worth mentioning how the effect can tone down the overly rusty look of the model.
Yeah,
because
it adds shine on
most
top
of
of
the
it.
large chips have a dark, shiny finish instead of being just rusty. On the other hand, it's advisable not to touch the model with your bare hands after this step.
Why?
Because
your finger would smudge it. Yeah, that would do it. So you probably need to seal it before anything. And it's graphite. Okay.
it might not be completely ideal for, let's say, gamers. I also added a bit of smoke residue on the weapons.
Oh?
This one is supposed to be some kind of laser, but I don't know. It kind of reminds me of a flamethrower, so...
I mean, with how hot any gun in 40K gets, if you do it long enough, everything starts shooting flames.
I was more generous with the application. The easiest way is to use a black pigment, but again, no touching because it's very easy to leave your fingerprints on this type of surface.
Yep.
I also polished the cleats on the tracks, but these were easier
They'd be
to pick
worn
out
through,
with
yeah.
silver acrylic paint.
Yep.
With that out of the way, I just slammed the turret in place and my mission was done.
It's like we could watch every step of the way of this and see every simple process he describes, and he makes it seem so incredibly simple. Then you just take a second, you close your eyes, you open them again, you look at it, it's like all of that knowledge runs away, and all you're left with is this. It looks like it's heavy duty, it's metal, it's worn down. You can see the effect here. Looks like there's bubbling underneath the paint where it's about to chip away because water damage has started to separate it from the metal. It looks realistic and heavy in a way that if I saw this on the tabletop, I'd think I need both hands to pick this up because it's not going to be a bit of metal. It's going to be a chunk of it because the optical illusion is perfect at this point. Also, Duck mentioned the eraser may take paint away as it's rubbing. Oh, yeah, it would probably be too abrasive. Good point. And if you use a metallic base, won't that make the color metallic too? Sometimes. But I've also found weird interactions with some of the paints, and I've tried to exploit that intentionally. Don't have any examples on me, though.
So that about does it, my friends. At first, I wanted to try painting this model in one of those...
And he didn't even cover just like the little glassy effect here that looks so incredibly shiny.
Hyper-realistic styles, but as I was progressing, I found that to be not so appealing.
Dude.
The fantastical shapes of the vehicle just don't lend themselves to that approach. So it felt more natural for me to employ a bit of post-shading and other stylistic choices.
Yeah.
But still, if you focus the most effort on chipping, rust zones, dust and mud, and of course the heavy steel textures and welds during the construction stages, I think the result can look quite realistic and gritty.
I'm still not sure about this section. And even this cutout I'm not sure about, but the welds, those are a detail that's absolutely, well, you can even say riveting, but that would be a little too mixing of metaphors there. The dirt, though, I wasn't sure I'd like them. In fact, I almost never like dirty effects, but it looks really damn good on this.
It was my first venture into Warhammer, and it was quite
enjoyable. Damn!
Especially when you're not limited by the historical conditions, and you can push the weathering and aging as far as you want.
I've done similar effects, not to this level, but I did not go about them this way. Mostly because I just did dry brushing to get a similar effect around the edges. And it was much simpler. But this looks so brilliant.
If you're an armor modeler, I hope you found this video fun. And maybe you'll get a taste for some Warhammer as well. And
I like to think I'm a half-decent painter. I can get things up to tabletop ready that are relatively good. This is kicking my ass in ways I didn't know it could be kicked. It's like finding out you have a third ass cheek and it's just been numb this entire time, and you found out it exists because someone shot it.
If you're a Warhammer painter, I hope you found this slightly different approach interesting to look at. From what I've seen and heard, enamels or oil paints are not as common here.
I've seen some people start picking them up for high-end display or competition level painting, like going into Golden Demon, for example, or some of the more exclusive ones where there's like a select invite list, but only there.
And most of the effects are achieved with acrylics. So if you found some new products or approaches to weathering that might help you, I'll be so happy to hear about that. The next model is gonna be a total passion project for me, so I hope you'll join me again. But until then, I want to sincerely thank every single one of you for watching these videos, because if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be sitting here building models for a living, and I can't thank you enough for this amazing opportunity. All of this is also possible thanks to my incredible patrons.
I need to get my painting game up because, I mean, just I left a like on this thing already. Make sure you guys do that. I'm just going to leave a subscription on this guy's channel because I want to check out his other videos, because I do check out painting. It's one of the videos I check out when I'm not streaming. Every step of the way, it's like, this makes sense. But then you got into the models and the dirt and the dust and the actual pieces of rock and... Oh. So Duck in the chat right now mentioned this guy sells his models when he's finished. I will be so surprised if the guy who's currently pulling together a miniature museum in Las Vegas doesn't have one of this man's models in his collection. It's an old thing. It might be ready maybe a few more years. It's been working on. Technically, the museum I'm talking about is already open, but I fully expect if this museum ever goes live, 1, I will make a trip to Vegas explicitly for this museum. 2, I'll probably see one of this guy's models in person, because there's no way there's not going to be a thing about that. Also, Magnetar, yes. A collector who had a mansion in Vegas because he did investments was compulsively buying painted models since I think the 80s, from game catalogs, RPG catalogs, war game catalogs, the painted catalog models. And then he would buy some of the winners from competitions for decades, to the point where he lived like a hoarder in a maybe 10,000 square foot mansion, if not bigger than that. I'm expecting to see things like this there. It's open, but only for painting classes right now. They don't actually have the museum sections ready, as far as I know. Basically what I'm saying is there's a link to the original video. Hit it up. It's amazing, and I want to see more of this. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios.